Hi, sixth graders. I hope your day's been going well. Today we're going to be doing 6.6, which is going to be a little confusing because you're going to have answers with a letter or a variable in it, and that is totally fine. All right, so here's the deal. You're going to watch this video. You have to watch the whole thing. And then when you're finished with the video, then you can go ahead and work on the assignment, okay? If you finish with that, you can work on missing work. So here we go. I'm not going to go through the entire lesson with you, but I'm going to go through a lot of it. All right, so the warm-up. Which rectangle has a greater area? So you take a second, pause the video, and see if you can figure out which area has the greater area, or which rectangle has the greater area. All right, well, when I do this problem, I need to do 3 times 2, which is 6, and 3 times 5, which is 15, and then add it up, and I get 21. Same thing for B. 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 5 is 10, 6 plus 10 is 16. So rectangle A is bigger. You can kind of tell just by looking at it too, because it looks a lot bigger. All right, next one. Apples cost $1.50 per pound. A customer wants to buy 3 pounds of apples. How much should you charge them? All right, so one thing that we haven't really talked about is the word per. We talked about how it means 1, but it also means multiply. So if it costs $1.50 for 1 pound, and I want 3 pounds, I need to multiply it by 3. Okay, 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 5 is 5, 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, and there are 2 numbers behind the decimal point, so my answer would be 450. Okay, you can use calculators for this as well, so if you didn't know what $1.50 times 3 was, go ahead and type that in on your calculator instead of solving it out. All right, moving on to slide 3. This time we know that 3 apples was $4.50. We want 4 apples. So I need to take 4 times $1.50. When I do that, I get $6. And again, type it in on your calculator. Now I want 7 pounds of apples. So I'm going to multiply it by $1.50. 7 times $1.50 is $10.50. Same thing with 8 pounds. I need to multiply it by $1.50. So I get $12. And that is my answer. Moving on to slide 4. Here's one student's work from the previous screen. They got the same answers that I did. Describe how to determine the cost of any number of pounds of apples. Well, what did I do for each of these rows? I multiplied by $1.50. And that would be your answer. All right, Rudra and Sai each wrote an expression to determine the cost of p pounds of apples. So Rudra said you take your pounds, so you would take 3 and you would add $1.50, and that's how you got your cost. Whereas Sai says you're taking $1.50 times p, so you're doing 4 times 1.5 to get 6. Who's correct? Well, we just learned in the last one that we need to multiply by 1.5, so it is Sai. Rudra's works for the first one, but it wouldn't work down here. So if we said 8 plus $1.50, that would be $9.50, which is not 12. So Rudra's does not work. So it is Sai. All right, limes. Limes cost $2.40 per pound. How much should you charge for p pounds of limes? So this is if we didn't know how many pounds of limes we're buying. We're just going to call it p. Well, it costs $2.40, so we'll start with that. And remember that word per means times, and we don't know how many pounds we're buying, so we're going to call it p. So our answer would be 2.4 times p. And remember, if you didn't want to put this times sign in the middle, you don't have to, because we know that a number squished next to a letter means multiply. But you can if you want. All right, number 7, lemons cost $1 per pound, and for an extra $5, you can have the entire order delivered. What is the total cost for each of these deliveries? Well, if we take a look at the first one, it's $1 per pound, so we need to multiply by $1. So 3 times 1 is 3, plus that $5 delivery fee, so $8. That's how they got that. So now we're going to do the same thing for the next one. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 5 would give us a $10 delivery total. Same thing with the next one. We need to multiply by $1. 10 times 1 is 10. Plus 5 would give us $15. And then lastly, 12.5 multiplied by 1 would be 12.5. Plus 5 gives us $17.50 for our total cost. All right, moving on to number 8. Here's one student's work from the previous screen. I write an expression for how much you should charge for p pounds of lemons, including delivery fee. Well, if you remember, we took our pounds times $1 plus 5. So you could write it like this, or if you wanted, you could switch the 1 and the p around, like that. Or you don't even need that 1 in front of it. Anytime we don't know what's in front of a letter, because it doesn't tell us, we know that it always means a 1. So you didn't even need to put the 1 if you did not want to. All right, we're getting close. Slide 9. Match each scenario with an expression that represents its cost. You will have 2 cards left over. All right, so for some reason it wouldn't let me move these 2. That's why they're way down here. But that's besides the point. So our first one says X pizzas, $15 per pizza. And our second one says X dollars of groceries, $10 for delivery. So we need to pick if it's going to be timesing or adding for each one, because I see a 15x and an x plus 15 and a 10x and an x plus 10. Well, if we look at our pizzas, I see the word per. So that tells me I'm multiplying. And it's $15 per pizza, and we don't know how many pizzas. So this would be our expression. Okay, then for our second one, it says X dollars of groceries and a $10 delivery fee. So for this one, it doesn't say the word per, so we're not multiplying. So we're buying our groceries, plus we're paying $10 for delivery. So this would be our answer. And that is right here. So then those other 2 can be left out. All right, and our last problem for the lesson, and then you can go ahead and get started on the assignment, is our cool down. Oranges cost $2 per pound. What is the cost of X pounds of oranges? Well, $2 per pound tells me I'm multiplying, and we don't know how many pounds, so we're going to call that X. So I'm doing 2 times X, which is exactly the same as 2X. So that is your final answer for this lesson. So now your job is to fill in the worksheet. Remember, there might be some problems where you do have an X in your answer like this, and that is A-okay. That's totally fine. If you have a question, you can send me a message. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.